Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Limited Time Only. I'm your host, Spencer, and I'm joined by my co host, a silver pro that some people thought was bronze, Danny Cathro.
I think I am currently locked for bronze. That's like a thing. So they're not incorrect in
Sure,
thinking that I'm bronze for
yeah,
now. Yeah,
but
it
you are
works.
not bronze. You are
I'm a silver
you
pro
are
for
you are a
a,
silver pro.
a few more months at least,
Yeah.
and then a year after that.
I don't know if this is my computer or your camera, but you look so rosy red right now, my man.
Yeah, I think I got this sweet light set up. I like put a lamp next to my desk. It works wonders. I just like really brightens up the whole atmosphere. I
Just
really
the
like
whole
that.
thing.
The whole thing just really bright.
I also have a lamp right here, so I know where that's coming. Who doesn't sell lamps but does sell Magic the Gathering cards is our sponsor at at Fusion Gaming. Our sponsor is actually the Manabase, but you should check out their sponsor at Fusion Gaming. The Manabase is awesome. They're working well with us, and we really enjoy that. I got some cards from them today. I should get some cards from them tomorrow for Michael. Like, it's just been a really cool sponsorship. If you're looking for awesome up-and-coming Magic content, I highly recommend checking out the Manabase. And then you can check out playatgamegrid.com to see if there's a game grid near you. They're our other sponsor, and we really appreciate them as well. So that's playatgamegrid.com and the Manabase. So check them both out. Um, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can go to patreon.com/LTOMTG, become a patron of the show. I'm not going to lie, I did not check to see if we have new patrons this week. So we
We'll
will
check
shout.
it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll shout you out next week if we did get some new ones. But yeah, we did get a patron asking us about splitting their CCMTG LTO patronage. So I know some people are interested in doing that. And that's totally okay. Like, we want you to spend your money where you want to spend it. And LTO's been going strong. I am, due to just the popularity of it, I am going to switch the patronage from per podcast on LTO to per month, just to make things super easy for people. So I'll get that done as soon as possible. Patreon.com/LTOMTG. We really appreciate those who are supporting us now, and we can't wait to get more support in the future. So let's go on to our first segment. So every week on the show, we like to talk about our biggest movers. These are the cards that moved up or down for us the most in a given limited format over the week. I was not on last week. I was on some new awesome cough syrup and didn't feel like it would be appropriate for me to be on the show. But so I'm going to start with my biggest mover down, because apparently it was your biggest mover down last week. And that's Reckless Raptor. So this card is 1 and a white for a 3/3, or sorry, a red and a white for a 3/3 that has to attack each turn if able, or block each turn if able. And
And vigilance.
And vigilance. But here's my thing with this card is, first of all, I don't think the card's very good. And second of all, I don't really want it in my red-white decks to begin with.
Okay.
Like,
how so?
Okay, I guess it's just because it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, in general just don't think.
If I told you to choose between this and Raptor Companion, I feel like you'd choose Raptor Companion.
Oh no! So I do think this card is more powerful. Like, it does more than Raptor Companion does. No?
I think it's actually bad.
Okay. I mean, the upside's more. Like, if you play this on turn 2, it's obviously a much better card than Raptor Companion is, right?
Sure.
But the second that you stop curving out and aren't ahead, this card becomes a big liability. And so, or if you just draw it later in the game and they have a 3/4. So it kind of makes you do some chump attacks in weird spots. So it definitely, the drawback's real. Yeah.
And I feel like where you have to spend, like, if you're looking at your draft and you're looking at the equity of the picks, right? Like, you give up so much equity to get this card into your deck because of where you have to pick it, compared to something like a Raptor Companion.
Yeah.
It's just not worth the cost. So that's my biggest mover down. Your biggest mover down is Mutiny.
Yeah, I've never really been a big fan of this card. I think you've always been higher on it than I was. And I tried it out a couple times recently.
What decks are you playing it in?
I haven't specifically played it in Blue Red, which is what you talk about. But
yeah, I don't know that it's good outside of blue-red.
yeah, it's felt pretty bad in all of like I played it in like a red. I had it in
Like,
a red-white deck, but that deck just wasn't great. And then
yeah, I mean, it wasn't even good in my red-black decks, right? Like
yeah,
the decks that it probably should be very good in. I
hmm
think that it's specifically good in blue-red.
just to like try to force through
Well, because like the
menace
only thing that you care about is like getting small little things out of the way for your menace creature, or small little things out of the way um
flyer, like a
for your
get rid of
flyer,
their little
and like
flyer. Yeah,
even sun, what is it, the pterodon, like even be
yeah,
able to kill that post combat and giving yourself a 2-for-1 usually
hmm
is good enough. Like you just have to get it off the board, right?
hmm
And so that's just my thoughts on the card. Like I agree with you. I don't know that I'm high on it as much as I'm high on blue red. So because of that, like
okay,
I'm
yeah,
perfectly happy playing that.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I don't want it in my green decks. I
yeah, yeah,
certainly don't want it in my white deck. I mean, yeah, it's just blue red.
yeah, yeah. So just that, not super impressive card. But
Cool. Well, let's go with our biggest mover up,
hmm
and I think we both have cards we probably would have never expected to say this about.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Want
So
to go ahead and start?
mine, yeah, I'll start. So mine is negate, which is kind of a weird one. Like I don't think I'm normally main decking it still, but it's been a card that I've been really happy to have in my sideboard. Like, and I'll take it higher than I was originally, just because like you play against a bunch of powerful removal spells, powerful like enchantment rares, and it like negate has been really good to me. I think that a lot of the games go late, and that you can afford the downside of it being a little more situational than you would like because it'll hit like the spells that matter in the matchups that matter. So
Yeah, I I I lost you a little bit there. Are you saying you're main decking this?
no, I'm not main decking it.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
that's that. I think that's a little too far. I like maybe you could get away with it in, but it's probably a little too risky. There's just a lot of creatures still.
I'd like to talk about one card that isn't in this set. We usually try to focus on cards in the current set, but can we talk about Crushing Canopy really quick?
Yes, that card's great.
Is
Like
that card what how is that? Do you value that card the same way that you might value like straight up removal at this point?
yeah. I think it is more important for your deck than Hunt the Weak, for example. Like
I do
far
too.
more important.
I would say that like whether it's draft or sealed,
hmm
like I if I'm in green, like there I'm taking that card over like really good cards at this point.
Yeah. It's just so critical. Like there's tons of enchantments that matter. Like a lot of people's rares are enchantments, and then flyers are like the one big thing that you have a problem with in green, and so and you only have like one pack that has Grazing Whiptail, which is like your go-to way to deal with flyers in green, and so like Crushing Canopy is really important. It covers a lot
Yeah,
of your bases.
and there's so many like the blue enchantment, the white
Uh,
enchantment, like there's so much going on in this set that this card really deals with. That I know we use biggest movers to talk about like cards in this set, and I'll talk about mine in a second. But I just wanted to mention that like if you are in green, I like I've always been in favor of main decking like one of these effects. One Crushing Canopy, even last sealed. But like
yeah.
if you're playing sealed, I would probably play both Crushing Canopies that I open in my main deck.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, everyone's going to be playing the Sun-Crested Pterodon, and so many people are going to be in white, and that card is going to be so powerful, you'll probably
And they're
have
gonna splash their white removal
targets.
spells. Like the white removal spells are splashable at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Like
And
ev-
bomb rares, especially. Like, a lot
yeah.
of the enchantments are just rares, and so you get that benefit just, like, hedging against those
What
cards
what
for
enchantment are
free.
you specifically thinking of at rare?
So, like, Profane Procession,
Yeah. Okay.
the the blue-green one is
I see.
stupid.
You're talking about
Hadana's
the cycle.
Climb.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I was trying to think
So
of like
those two are the most egregious. Those two
yeah.
are like really powerful.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That makes sense. Um I yeah, I don't know that Profane Procession is like a card you're gonna end up beating with this a lot, but
I
I
mean,
think that hitting a Squire's Devotion in combat and like killing their creature or hitting a Mark of the Vampire, like these are things that will definitely come up. I just think it
there's
has
still
something.
movement.
There's just something that it will hit in every matchup. So my biggest mover up is Recover. and we kind of touched on it 2 weeks ago. We both said that we've been playing one in all of our decks. But I actually splashed a Dust Charger and a Recover in a sealed deck the other day.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, is this good? And it was. It was like, I think it was correct.
Yeah. Like, and both of those cards seem very underwhelming, but provide like something important. Like some decks, you just need a big thing.
You just don't. 5/5.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. Like, if you had told me at the beginning of this format, like, Spencer, you're gonna splash Recover in sealed, I'd be like, no, I don't even know that I'm gonna play Recover. So I've really, really liked the card. So for those who don't know, Recovers 2 into black for a sorcery. It returns target creature from your graveyard to a hand and you draw a card. This is what this sealed format can be about. So obviously, like, you can open like a nut blue red deck or a nut red black deck or like even a nut red white deck, right? And then you can also open the Dinosaurs deck, right? But the Dinosaurs deck and the blue decks that are not aggressive, they are about this. And I would say that the Vampires deck in sealed is much more grindy than it was. Like, I mean, before it was like you're aggroing people out, right? Like you're trying to get a mark of the vampire on something
with a deacon,
with a deacon or something, and just kind of go to town. And in this one, like, no, like you open a lot of Legion Conquistadors. You're trying to gain advantage through those. Maybe get something that pumps your creatures when they ETB or something, or a Radiant Destiny or something like that. And even the Vampires deck becomes super grindy. And because of that, Recover just is exactly what I want. It's, in all honesty, it's significantly better than Divination and Sealed because you get back something super relevant that you care about, like a bomb or like just a very relevant creature that like they had to spend a lot of equity to get rid of, and then you just get an additional card in anyway. So I would take that over Divination every time.
Yeah, it's just you get a more reliable effect at the point in the game that you would like to play that spell.
Right.
So
obviously you can't like jam it on turn 3 the way that you could Divination.
Exactly.
But I mean, you want to be playing to the board on those turns anyway.
Yep. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that card's been great for me also. It's just surprisingly good. It'll probably make me overvalue it when it is in future sets or similar effects are in future sets.
Yeah. I don't think it's gonna usually.
Yeah.
So let's go on to our next part. We have color of the week. So every week on the show, we like to talk about a color. I don't know if this is a repeat color or not, Danny. Have we already talked about red in this format?
I think it was one of the first ones. So we've been. I think the set's been out for more than 5 weeks. So I think we've talked about each one, if I remember correctly. Not.
So you guys didn't do color of the week on First Impressions week.
Okay.
And you didn't do. So First Impressions week, we didn't have a color of the week. Then we did blue. Then we did red on Sealed week.
Okay. So we might not have done black, I guess, but I felt like we had talked about black a lot, but maybe we hadn't talked about it too.
Maybe. Do you want to do black? We can do black instead.
Yeah, we can do black. Yeah, just because we haven't talked about. It looks like that is the color that was missing. So
okay.
Yeah, we can do black.
So let's get our bearings for a second.
No, you're good.
We were both a little bit more prepared for red. But what do you think like the notable black commons are in draft specifically?
So Impale's definitely like when the set came out, that was the baseline. Okay, Impale, that's going to be the best removal spell at common. I think it's held true. Like it is very good.
You like it better than Moment of Craving?
I think it's close. Like Moment of Craving might be better, but both of those are two of the top couple common removal spells in the set for sure. They're both insane.
So I'm always kind of surprised by black because in this set because like the decks that I would typically want to play, like for me personally, like I really like green black, and I'm pretty okay with white black sometimes. And I, as much as I know that a lot of people like vampires, I don't really enjoy it in this set as much. And like and red black is like one of my favorite archetypes. I get Vampires is okay. Like, but let's focus on green black and red black for a second.
Okay.
Those decks just aren't very good in this set.
Not like red black is towards the bottom, like one of the worst ones, I think. And
I think green black might be the worst one.
Yeah, green. I have not played with or against green black all that often. They just don't really go together. I mean, sure, it can line up every once in a while, but it is pretty bad.
And it's interesting because like when I think of like the 4 best black commons, the ones that instantly jump to mind to me are Impale, Dusk Charger, Dusk Legion Zealot, and Moment of Craving.
That's probably like Dusk Charger being on that list is pretty crazy, but I think it's correct.
Yeah, like, I mean, you could make an argument really that Recovers on the list too.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like outside of Grasping Scoundrel, I just is it Dark?
There's a few duds.
There's some few clunkers, right?
Dark Inquiry is not great in draft.
Yeah, Canal Monitor's not very good. Gruesome Fate's not very good. So there's some clunkers, but there's also really good commons, right?
For sure.
So like we talked about those 4, and black can be a really good support color in this set, but I don't think that it's a very good main color in this set. Go ahead.
I think that's why black-white is so successful, is because you get to play all the best black cards, and then you just play all of the white cards. And and whereas when you try to do that with green, you have to play a lot more questionable cards because both of those colors aren't quite as deep.
Yeah, and if we look at like notable commons and sealed, I think that for me, obviously the removals, they're going to play all the removal you'll get in sealed, but I think Dusk Charger and Recovery that I kind of talked about earlier, like they move up the list fast in sealed.
Yeah, they're insane in sealed. They act like uncommons in sealed almost, right? Where they're just giving you an effect that is going to be able to actually win a game. Because so often in sealed it comes down to you just need to do something powerful in order to win, and Recover is that effect. Like you can, like it is a 2-for-1. You're going to get ahead of your opponent with it,
and you're gonna get back something that somebody like. They gave up equity to kill this creature, right? Like, so it's pretty good. The notable uncommons. I mean, let's be real: Ravenous Chupacabra, Golden Demise. Like,
those are both pretty ridiculous.
Yeah,
and they're definitely the better uncommons. Like, there's a couple. Those 2 are insane. There's 2 okay ones, or a few okay ones, and then
Reaver Ambush is good, but I actually think that one of Black's problems in the set is how bad it is at uncommon compared to some of the other colors. You know, what's the discard spell?
Arterial Flow.
So that card can be good, but it's like obviously not great. Like Mind Rotted uncommon isn't exactly something I love. Forerunner of Coalition.
It's like the worst one, right? Like
I think it is.
Yeah, like I mean, unless you open a hostage taker or something, I think it's going to be the worst one. Yeah, but like a lot of the other ones, you don't need to be able to tutor something, or there's like far more tutor targets. Whereas this one, you really need to want that pirate, otherwise the effect is not super powerful for what you're paying.
Yeah. And then, you know, if you kind of just look, I'm just going to read off a couple. Mausoleum Harpy, not that exciting. Pitless Plunder, not that exciting. Oathsworn Vampire kind of underperformed for me in this set.
I thought it was going to be insane, and it's blah. Right? Like,
and like the next 2 good uncommons, they might actually be the last 2 uncommons too, are Reaver Ambush and Sadistic Skymarcher. Like, the color's just kind of weak at uncommon. For both sealed and draft, to be honest, like but it kind of evens out, right? Because it also has the best by a significant margin uncommons.
Yes, yeah, like the top tier uncommons in black are obviously great. Like Chupacabra and the Golden Demise are like game changing cards that they have like rare effects but are at uncommon.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at something like Golden Demise, and I've had a lot of sealed games where I've had Golden Demise, where I was like, I have no idea how they beat this.
That happened at the Team GP that we went to. It was just like, oh wow, your deck can't beat this card.
Yeah, even if it doesn't clear their board, it makes it so that you have mono profitable attacks. So it's like kill 3 things and take 12.
Yes.
Like, it's so crazy.
It's like, oh, I had a 2/2 that now your 4/4 doesn't want to block. Like, those are very different creatures, and now you can just jam it into it. Yeah.
Yeah, Golden Demise is just easily one of the
it's the most overperforming card of the set for me.
I know that people like have a consensus that Chupacabra is better because it's like always good, but I think that in Sealed I would rather have my first Golden Demise over my first Chupacabra.
That might be true. It definitely is like more game changing. Where Chupacabra
you just talked about how Sealed is about doing something more powerful, right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And like,
yep. I mean, sometimes Chupacabra is more powerful, but sometimes Golden Demise is. Like, there's definitely a case that Golden Demise does something different than what other cards in the set can do, whereas Chupacabra is a removal spell that you get a free 2/2. And so you can get more different removal spells, but it's hard to get that type of a sweeper overrun effect.
So the next thing that we have on here for Color of the Week is color pairs. We kind of talked about how green-black's not very good. Red-black is a deck that I have 2-1 with lots of times, but I actively don't think it's very good. Do you find yourself ending up in red-black a little more than you'd like to just because it's not very good and you first pick a Chupacabra, you second pick an Impale, and then you start getting past red cards? Yeah.
And then you're just kind of like, well, these black cards are very good, and these are a lot of Bombards and 2 and 3 drop red creatures, so I guess this is what I'm doing.
I end up with this deck a lot, and I know that I'm gonna 2-1, and it's such a weird feeling. The deck is fine, right? Like, it's you. That's how you end up in it, in my opinion. Is like you first pick a really good black card, and second pick a really good black card, and then you get a really good red card, and then you get another really good black card, and now you're 3 really good black cards in, and all of a sudden you just get past red for the rest of pack 1. And it's like, okay, I have 2 dinosaur hunters and 3 amazing black cards, and then the rest of my cards are red.
And red isn't the best at supporting that type of distribution. Like, it doesn't have all of the best.
Yeah. Comments. What when you are in red black, obviously you get Buccaneer's Bravado, huge help. But
and your pirates are 2/2s, so you can use Tealani's Crown and Buccaneer's Bravado a lot better.
That's true. So for me, when the times that I'm the most successful with that red black deck, it's almost always involved some of the more important uncommons. For example, I think that Daring Buccaneer is super, super important for an actually good red black deck, because you want to be using your mana earlier, so that your kind of mediocre 2-drops that you end up playing can do a little bit more work.
Yeah, I mean, when you play a 1-drop on turn 1, your 2-drop on turn 2 gets way better. It is just so much more pressure.
And I think that C-Red is really good with a lot of these within this deck. So if I can play a 1-drop, 2-drop, the 3-drop, one of the 2 3-drop 3/3 pirates, then things like C-Red and Tealani's Crown that you mentioned, that this deck kind of ends up playing those kind of cards a lot. I think that's what makes
when black-red gets good. Is if it can be is aggro. Yeah, but so often you don't get that deck. Instead, you get this
this red
weird
heavy removal weird.
Yeah, the heavy removal red black deck does not work very well.
Yeah. Okay, so red black, we kind of know where we stand. So blue black is super interesting in that it's not really blue black. It's blue black everything.
Yep.
I've played, I think, 1 blue black pirate stack in this format. And I think that the cards that you're really you're a blue deck with black removal most often when you're in this deck, and you're looking for Sailor of Means, you're looking for Secrets of the Golden City. Oh my gosh, this deck
very good.
This deck loves it some Secret of the Golden City.
And I think the reason why is just black complements that strategy really well from blue. Black isn't providing a lot of treasures. There's some, but it's mostly that just having the removal spells and like just like good like random dudes from black and recover. Like you can build that grindy deck that
Well,
can
I
take
think
advantage of
Recover
it.
and Dust Charger
And Ash and
are a
Dust
huge
Legion Zealot.
reason why it complements the blue deck so well, right? Because if you just Dust Charger, how am I getting this effect?
Yeah. Sorry, you broke up a little bit at the end, but I definitely like Dust Charger complementing blue is super, super good.
Yeah, I think so too. What are the splashable cards that you typically are willing to splash for in this deck with your treasures?
So it's normally like uncommons and rares. So you always want charging Monster Sword. That's like the go-to splash card,
Well,
right?
Tendershoot Dryad also.
Oh yeah, that's when you're really doing it. Yeah, Tindershoot Dryad it goes in every deck, and it's always great.
But it is one of the ones that I think that you'll see out of this deck quite a bit. Like
Uh-huh.
it's one of the rares that's like, yep, just playing this, just playing this.
Well, why not? Of course you'd play that.
Yeah.
Um, I think so. Sometimes you'll splash. Like I've seen Hadana's Climb and Profane Procession splashed
Mhm.
in those. Which Profane Procession is weird to splash, but it's pretty common actually.
Yeah, I've seen Profane Procession. I think you splash your white removal quite a bit. So like you'll splash your Luminous Bonds, your your the 4-mana one.
Yeah. Yep.
What is it called? I can't even remember.
I am trying to think of it. There's Bishop of Binding as the creature version.
No, it's the
Ixalan's Binding.
is it Ixalan's Binding? That's
Oh yeah, from the last set, but yeah.
from the last set. There we go. That's what I'm thinking of. Um, and I think that like you have to be realistic of how many things you're splashed. Oh, you'll also splash Suncrested Pterodon.
Oh yeah. And then like the Resplendent Griffin, the uncommon version of that. But yeah, Suncrested Pterodon is really common to splash in this because you need a good win condition, and it's perfect. It's a big dumb blocker that wins the game. Yeah.
So, and then I think that we kind of mentioned that green black isn't really a thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing last set, and it didn't really get support. Like it got an uncommon, but that's it.
Yeah. So white black is a deck that I was really high on last set, and I don't really enjoy the set. And I think the reason is because I think that deck's way too reliant on uncommons for me. Like,
Interesting. So
go ahead.
I've liked white black a lot. I think it's probably overdrafted, at least online, from what I can tell. Like it from what I know, it's the consensus best deck, like most reliable deck, is just white and black removal spells with Legion Conquistadors is like a very reliable way to win games of Magic.
I've played that deck a lot.
Yeah, it's good, right? Like, okay, Army of Tutus.
I think this is like one of my most drafted sets like ever.
Really?
I feel like I've played like every deck many times,
Uh-huh.
and so that being said, I've drafted white black a lot, and I would take it over red black. I would take it over green white. Like I would take it over a lot of stuff, but I think that compared to where I was with the deck is kind of my thoughts on that. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes it lacks power level. Like white black leans really heavily on the Pterodon.
Yeah,
like that.
And
you need to win with that.
I do find that this deck is still quite good and sealed. I mean, I'm quite happy, clogging the board with Legion Conquistadors and Tetsamocking them, or Twilight Prophet's pretty great. It's just that's a mythic, but we kind of talked about how deep like the really good black cards are, right? So like Goldemise, Impale, Moment of Craving, Ravenous Chupacabra, which lends itself to being a really and Dust Charger and Dusk Legion Zealot, like it lends itself to be a really strong sealed color, black does. And the fact that white is also so deep means that I do end up in white black a decent amount in sealed.
Yeah, like if you get a bad pool, like white black is going to be a very common place for you to end up, just because you'll have some of your better cards and then a lot of good commons.
If I don't open the good blue cards, like it's a really common place for me to end up. So.
Sure.
All right, let's so where do we think the color stands in draft, and where do we think it stands in sealed? It's a fine color. Like,
Yeah. I think in
it's
sealed it is overrepresented because of how good Tetzamok is. Like,
sure.
you'll generally just play black when you open Tetzamok, and that happens more like pretty often. Same thing like Profane Procession. You're gonna play that card if you open it under like any circumstances that seem reasonable. And so you play against black quite a bit because of that, I think.
Yeah. I think that black is like we kind of mentioned, like it's deep at the good. It's not. It has very good cards.
Yes.
So if you
Yeah,
open them, like
Yep.
it's a really good reason to play the color.
Yeah, if you get the good black cards, your black deck is going to be very good. That doesn't always happen.
Let's go on to our training rounds. Every week on the show, we want to talk about something that's going to make you better at Magic or life in general. This show usually is more focused on the Magic part. We with Danny writing the show. You know, he's not very good at life, so he can't.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, I'm definitely better at Magic than I am at life in general. So we'll focus on our strengths.
I was just kidding.
That's pretty good.
Let's
nice. This week,
so Danny,
yeah?
This is take 2. This time you get to host the training grounds.
It's like 2.5 or something. I think I did it with Mason one time, and then kind of, yeah, it's tough. It's like definitely weird trying to take the reins on it. So we're definitely
they're all yours.
Cool. So this week I want to talk about building a mana base together because like mana bases are very interesting and very different in limited. So overall, I think a mana base is simpler and limited, but you don't have help for your specific scenario. Like in constructed, it's like the mana bases are more complicated, but you can just Google them, and then you have your mana base mostly correct. But
Sure.
in limited, you're like there's actually a lot of different factors that go into what your mana base should look like, and it's easier to build, but you don't have the resources when it's time to actually build your mana base. So I thought it might be like an interesting thing to like talk about what different decks look like and what their mana should do to support it.
Yeah, and I like how you're doing this because it's not just building a mana base, but it's like what your mana should look like by the number of colors you're playing.
Yep. So we're going to just kind of start with the simplest colors and then work up to more complicated, and then just kind of talk about how your mana adjusts based on how many colors you have. So occasionally you'll get a monocolor deck. Like, it's pretty rare, but it does come up, right? Like, sometimes white is just super open, or black. Like, I feel like it would be white, right?
I would say that most of my favorite draft decks
Or just monocolored.
Have been monocolored.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet when they come together. Like, really, really sweet.
Like, you have to have a pretty good reason to like. They also only happen in certain colors, right? You're probably not going to see a mono green deck very often. You're probably not going to see a mono blue deck very often, right? But with white, red, and black, you can get like there's enough if you get enough removal in those colors.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have drafted all 3 of those. Yeah. I have actually drafted a mono blue deck before, also.
I've heard in certain formats that just lack all aggression, mono blue is viable. So there's like an old M set that mono blue is supposedly like the best strategy, but
the opportunity set, the set with opportunity.
That's the one. Yeah. So like when you have a monocolor deck, you actually get to build your like mana base percentages more like constructed. Because a big reason why, so overall in limited, you're playing 17 lands on average, right? Out of 40 cards. And that's equates to 25 and a half lands, right? If you were to translate it to a 60 card deck. And that's normally quite a bit, especially because you have a good amount of 2 drops, 3 drops, and you're only playing a couple 5s. But the reason why that's like the default is because your colors suck compared to constructed. And so if you have a monocolor deck, you get to kind of ignore that like, what would it be? Like that deficiency in your mana base, and you can play less lands, not because your curve is different, but just because you only have one color and you'll never get color screwed. So like most of the time when I have a monocolor deck, I'm playing 15 lands because you like flooding and getting mana screwed is a lot harder to do if you just have 15 planes in your deck. Like,
Right.
you will always be able to cast the spells that you have lands for. Where
Yeah,
go ahead.
I should say I drafted a mono red deck at GPT once, old school.
Yep.
And like I think I played 15 lands. Like I didn't possibly see a reason to play more. Like that's such a huge percentage of your 40 card deck.
Yep.
Once you don't have, kind of like Danny said, like once you don't have to worry about getting that second color, it's every land you draw is the land you need.
Yep. And so we can like transition that into once you have a 2-color deck, especially if you don't have no fixing, that's like the next level up besides a monocolor is you're just starting to play 2 colors, right? If you have no fixing, even just like something that costs 2 red, that's like a pretty demanding spell to cast, especially if you also have 2 black. Like,
right.
You have to account for the 2 pips actually being a thing that comes up, because it's not all the time, but like a good percentage of your games, you're not going to draw both of those colors in a timely fashion. And so you have to play more lands just so that you can get the number of each source up to where it's reasonable. So I almost always play 17 lands if I am just playing all basics and 2 colors, unless it's like a rare situation. Like, I don't know, but is that your experience? Like if you're just playing 2 colors kind of evenly split, do you almost always play 17 lands?
Yeah, I mean, I caution on the side of 17, just because like I find that limited is like really skill rewarding, and so one of the things that 17 lands does for you, while it's slightly more lands than you want to play, it reduces the number of games where you lose to being mana screwed enough that it's worth the risk of getting flooded. Just not playing spells is like a really good way to lose.
Yep.
But you can stem the bleeding while getting flooded in limited. It's funny because in constructed, the person that gets mana screwed wins once they get out of flood pretty often, as long as they do it in a timely fashion. But in limited, that doesn't work because your spells aren't good enough to, like, your curve isn't low enough to keep you in the game, right? And your spells aren't powerful enough to bring you back.
Yeah, like if you miss your 3rd land drop, your 3 drop is not some haymaker. You're just gonna play a 2/2 or a 2/3, right?
Exactly.
Like,
in constructed, it's like, yeah, that can bring me back, and
you'll play a
and
Radiant
that's okay
Flames on turn 3 instead, or right, like that's some sweeper. Yeah,
exactly. And in limited, it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm playing my 3/3 while you're playing 4/4s now. So like even getting out of mana screw is not. It's just not the same. Whereas in constructed, it's almost reversed.
Yeah, it can still happen in limited all the time, right? Like that definitely is a line that comes up a lot where you'll be mana screwed and then eventually you draw out and win. But it's normally you always end at 4 life and they have multiple top decks that will kill you, right? Like, and that's like a very common game that you play out and your opponent's like, oh man, if I would have drawn this card, you would have died. But if you that's why you want to play the extra land, just because
also you want to get out of that.
Exactly. Like it's just you're ever so slightly less likely to not.
Now, I also want to say that it doesn't always have to be lands for me. Like mana sources is really what I'm trying to count most of the time.
Do you count like a 2 mana dork?
Like 1. If I have 2 of them, I'm probably playing 16 lands.
Okay.
Like if I have 2 Leaf Guilders, I'm not playing 17 lands.
Yeah, so that's so I think that's like the next evolution is once you start having some amount of fixing, you definitely can cut a land. There's
Leaf Guilder's not fixing, right?
Yeah, that's just a mana source, I guess. That's true. But yeah, I guess like it makes it like if you have 2 Leaf Guilders, playing 16 lands does make a lot of sense because you're very likely to draw 2, so you should be okay.
Yeah, one thing that I will say is like, when we looked at Kaladesh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it took a long time for people to convince me to shave and shave and shave on lands.
Lands. Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah, so Kaladesh, it was like I
you had
forget
the
why it
you
was
had the
so
things,
aggressive,
the
but
artifacts that drew you cards. You had the maps. You had the
oh
like
yeah. The
so
the green enchantment that went on your card. No, that was Aether Revolt, right? But yeah.
either way.
Yeah.
Like it took me a while to get to cut lands because I'm really hesitant. Um, like even in this set, I've played 17 lands a lot in decks. I'm pretty sure 16 land decks. Like some of my red blue decks, I like look at the mana costs and like how dense I am at red one and blue one, right? So my 2 drops are like really evenly split, and I have like 11 of them, and it's like or and then I have like 2 double blue spells on the other end or something.
Yeah. Well, Water Knot is like
Water,
causes
yeah,
so many issues like
I have
that.
like
Yeah.
two water knots and a bunch of red 2 drops, and it's like
Yep.
I just I need to play 17 lands just to like give myself a chance, and I'll draft like the blue red fixing land as that land,
Okay.
the
Yeah,
blue red
yeah.
to enter the tap land.
Yep. I think that what you're describing, like when you have that blue-red deck and you're looking at your 2 and 3 drops and you're like, wow, this curve is great, my deck is very good, you often want to add the land because you think your deck is a high power level, and as long as you can play your spells, you're going to win, right?
Yeah.
Like that is, for me, that's often a tiebreaker that I go with. Like I look at my deck and consider, okay, like if both of us play spells normally, am I favored or am I like not favored?
Right.
And that'll definitely influence how many lands I play. Just because if I think my deck is bad, I will shave a land frequently so that I can not flood out as much and try to win long
So
games.
I really hate your next point, so I'm really excited to talk about it.
All right, so which one are you talking about? Do you want to read
Oh,
it?
I thought we were going on to adding a splash.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that works great. So adding a splash. So I put that sometimes it's free if you have like evolving wilds, amulet, treasures. And I think that there are situations where it is like practically free. It's not always free, but it is practically free.
Yeah.
So
There are certain. I want to talk about 2 times that you're really willing to splash, and those times are with the time that Danny's talking about, right? Where it's free. Like
you have 4 Sailor of Means and you open a Tinder Shoe Dryad. And you're like,
it's not really
okay.
free, but it feels that way.
Yeah.
And then the other time is something that people don't splash enough is when they don't actually have ways to beat certain things. So like
Okay.
I'm in pack 3 of a draft, and I have no way to beat a flyer in my deck.
Yeah.
I might take a Divine Verdict or a 5 mana the chicken
Pterodon.
the Pterodon in my deck. Like I might be like, I need something.
Yep.
Like
I'm gonna lose to a 2/1
obviously those
flyer.
don't work because they're
Sure.
in the previous
pack 2.
spec. But like you know what I'm saying.
Yep. Or a
Like-
Crushing Canopy. Sure.
Yeah, well I've splashed red cards in my green white decks many times because I'm like, I just need a way to beat a flyer, and this bombard's gonna do it.
Yep. And I think that has a lot to do. And your mana has to adjust, right? Like you have to be
I'm gonna play 2 sources to play that bombard.
So if you have 1 bombard in your green white deck, you just will put 2 mountains in it. How common do you do that?
If I'm going to splash the bombard,
Yeah.
I would never play less than 2.
Oh no. So I always think of it as if I'm going to have 2 or 3 sources.
I'm saying that my minimum is 2. So
Okay.
what I would like is a traveler's amulet.
Yeah.
And the mountain, or an evolving wilds in the mountain, or a dual land. And then even if I have the dual land, I'll still play the mountain. But yeah, I mean I think it's pretty important to get at least 2. And if it's really important to my deck, and then if I have 2, I'll play 3.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna say I do that a lot. Like splash 2 pips, like 2 cards that have a pip, and play
Yep.
3 lands. That is
Yeah.
super common
I
for me.
want I want one more, or at least a half more, one and a half more than what I'm playing. Um,
Hmm.
and I also don't like splash. Like I've seen people splash removal that are like I'm not gonna splash the deal 3, deal 6, the red one from Ixalan. Like that's not happening. That's not
Oh
that's not
yeah,
a
you can't
reasonable
splash
solution
double.
for me. Um, but I mean, if I opened a Blaze
Uh-huh.
ever, I actually am all about splashing cards like Blaze, where it's like it goes up through the game,
Sure.
and it's basically unconditional removal. And if so, for example, I would splash. I mean, I mentioned splashing Ixalan's, or not Ixalan's binding, but Divine Verdict, and Ixalan binding's the same way. If
Mhm.
I see an Ixalan's binding and I don't have the cards that I need, I'll take that Ixalan's binding, and I would rather play two. I would rather play two uh, planes in my deck for that Ixalan's binding and that Ixalan's binding, and hope to get lucky that way, than just have no outs
To a
to
flyer
well,
or
not even
yeah.
just like, or just whatever.
Yep. I do think so. A lot of it does come down to like how good your deck is. So like let's take your blue red deck for example,
I'm
right?
not gonna ever splash in that deck.
Right? Yeah, like because your deck is going to do something and your out is just killing them. But if you're in some kind of like dino deck and you can't possibly beat
A flyer.
like turn 2 the 2/1 flyer and then put a C red on it, right? Like you're just like, okay, yep, I
Yeah,
scooped to that. Like you don't
yeah,
want that to be your
yeah.
position, and so
And
it
and it
becomes
doesn't
worth it.
it doesn't always have to be in your main deck. I'm not saying it does. Like
Hmm.
in sealed, I would lean towards main decking those type of things, but I might take that Ixalan's binding to specifically sideboard it.
Hmm. So like with how do you feel about splashing like a bomb? Like let's say that impact 3 you open. I mean Tinder Shoot Dryad's a good example. Let's
Yeah,
say you're like red blue and
yeah.
then or yeah,
If
go
it's a
ahead.
card as good as Tindershoot Dryad, I'm going to I'll
Like first pick it
almost
and just play 2
yeah,
that
I would
basic.
probably just play it. Now let like Tetsamok, for example. Um I so here's the thing. Tetsamok is good enough that I might switch colors in pack 2,
Mhm.
right?
That is the
So
benefit of taking random cards that aren't even in your colors when you're in the last packs instead of taking like a bad card that's in your color. Right? Oh, I can't hear you. You're breaking up, I think.
I wasn't talking.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. Yeah, yeah, you're good. Sorry. I heard like a noise. I thought you were talking, but good. But yeah, like that's so late in packs I like to take the random playable over the unplayable in my color for that reason, in case you want
Yeah.
to switch.
Yeah, I think that, when I'm thinking about splashing bombs, people like to slash interesting stuff. So like let's take Elspeth Sun's Champion as an example.
Hmm.
You're already two colors, really heavily. You you have to do a lot of work to get that Elspeth Sun's Champion into your deck.
Hmm.
And the same thing. I'm trying to think of a card in Ixalan that would be a good example.
Like a Vraska or something if you weren't green or
Well, I would
black.
I would
Or
I if you weren't green and black, I don't think you could splash it. But I would
yeah,
but
that's
I would
fair.
also always splash Vraska if I was green or black.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's just like your slam dunk. I will put 2 basics just to make this work. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of depends, like
Hmm.
on
I
the bomb.
I think splashing is one of the areas where people make the most mistakes. Um,
Because
just
they do it too
leaning,
much or not enough.
yeah, like it's really hard to strike the balance, right? Because there's so many factors that go into whether or not you want to splash. Like what is your deck's game plan? Like if you're in an aggro deck, you probably shouldn't be splashing normally. That's kind of how I feel. Um, but like how good is your mana? Like what's the overall power level of your deck? Do you need to splash this just to be able to win more games? Um, yeah, just like your curve, whether you have a low curve that wants to try to like just win that direction, or whether you have like a lot of removal and you can go to the late game and reliably draw that source on like turn 12 or something. But there's like a lot of factors, and I think you have to juggle them and
Okay.
kind of weigh them in
I,
the moment.
I thought of a card that I would think about.
Yeah.
River's Rebuke is a card that,
Okay.
like, this is something I need to decide. Like, River's Rebuke is extremely powerful, right? Like,
Yeah.
that card's going to win you most of the games, if not almost all the games where you cast it.
Yeah.
And those type of cards you have to make a tough decision. And I think that on cards like this, right, where they're double colored, even though they're 6 mana, I need a half source. So basically what I'm saying is, like, I need a dual land and like a Traveler's Amulet. And then I'm splashing it. Like, then I'm like, okay, I'm in. But, like, I'm not going to splash a River's Rebuke off of 2 islands and nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be able to cast.
Reasonable.
I'm not going to be able to cast it. Yeah. And so you need, like, those half sources to really get there on that.
Yeah. And so transitioning into, like, the full blown, you're kind of going off the deep end. How do you normally get into, like, 3+ color decks?
Yeah, so this is really format dependent.
Do you ever do, like, the full train wreck? Do you ever, like, your draft is so bad you're literally just on the 5-6-6?
No, so I'm, like, trying to think of times where this, like, it's so funny because, like, I remember we did a draft of one of the Modern Masters sets, I think it was. What was the one that had Dunrovahor? What is that set?
Yeah, that's Modern Masters too, I think.
Okay. Is it Modern Masters
Eternal Masters?
I don't know what it was. Whatever it was.
It might be Eternal Masters, actually.
Michael Hinderocker and I were on opposite sides of the table and both just started taking lands. And the way that I typically find myself getting into the set is there's a lot of this kind of deck, and there's a lot of color fixing at common. And so by at some point you need to look at your lands that you're getting and decide your main colors. And this is really important. Mm-hmm. So, like, I remember I was mainly blue. So I was a blue, I think I was a blue-red deck that was splashing. I think I was 4 colors in this draft, but that's typically the way that works, is, like, your color fixing lines you up one way, and then you still take the most powerful cards. So what happens is you take your land super highly, and then later in the draft, you start taking the most powerful cards. So lands, signets, stuff like that. Luckily, in things like Cons of Tarkir, the way that it happened is you would take mono lands, and because all the creatures had morph, you didn't need other types of color fixing, because you just needed the colors later. You didn't need them to cast the cards. So it kind of just depends on the format for this, but it's definitely find out what your fixing is first, and then decide your base colors, and then take the most powerful cards.
Yeah, I think the full train wreck 3 colors evenly should almost never happen, right? Like, I don't think there's almost any scenario wherein that is advantageous, right? Like, you're just giving up too much equity of not being able to cast spells in too many of your games. So, like, your deck will look good. If someone, like, thumbs through your deck and isn't paying attention, you're going to have a lot of powerful cards in your deck. But then they're like, wait, hold on. And then they look at your mana and they're like, oh yeah, obviously this deck looks powerful, but you're going to just lose.
I also don't like double colored spells
in that type of
in those decks, because I don't. Usually my lands are to the battlefield tapped, which is going to take it even longer for me to cast these spells. It just depends. Also, I can't stress enough that, like, I don't do these decks unless there are common lands.
Yeah, the format needs to support it. Like in the Rivals of Ixalan, you can kind of do it, right? Just because you have Traveler's Amulet, Evolving Wilds at common.
Yeah.
And then Sailor Beans. Right?
Yeah, and the treasures really, really, really are what do it, right? Mm-hmm. But these 4-color decks are not the same 4-color decks we're talking about, right? We're talking about a 2-color deck that splashes two other colors, right? Mm-hmm. These are 2-color decks, right? It's a black-blue deck that splashes 2 white cards and a red card.
Or, like, you could splash like 5, 6, 7 cards, but your core of your deck is going to be those colors, and most of your basics are going to be those colors. You're only going to play Yeah.
And then this deck, right, this 3+ color deck, the way my mana base looks is 11 fixing lands,
Yeah, yeah. Like
and
at
then
least
the
6,
best cards that I
7.
could draft.
Yep.
Right, that's totally different. Like I'm playing 4 basics, 5 basics. Sometimes you'll play 18 lands in these decks also, rather than playing 17 lands, so that you can get your count correct. And it's the same. It's kind of the same thing that we talked about playing 17. Right? Is if I drafted nothing but the most powerful things, then I get to play 18 lands because all of my things are great.
Yep. This is like I feel like this strategy mostly comes up in cubes and master sets and then
Multicolor,
Cons of Tarkir, right?
multicolored sets.
Yeah.
So
But they're really sweet. Like those decks are very fun to draft,
yeah,
because it takes a lot of finesse. Like there's a lot of factors going into how you should build your mana base, what card you should be taking, because you can take, instead of having 2 real options per pack, you have like 8, right? Like you open up your second pack and there's like 8 good cards. You're like, okay, which one should I take, or do I need this land? And it makes it a very fun experience for sure.
yeah. Cool. Well, that is it for this week's training grounds. Yeah, I hope that we helped you all. What are y'all talking about? I just got here. We're talking about mana. I hope that helped people. Thanks for writing that up, Danny. Let's wrap this up by just saying, don't worry, you can check out patreon.com/LTOMTG to become a patron of the show. You can check out our sponsors at the Manabase and Game Grid. You can find me at Spencer13H. You can find Danny at DJ Cathro. You can find Mason at Mason E. Clark. He's the producer of this show, so thank you so much to Mason for all you're doing. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. I'm going to look into getting it on Google Play. I know that's something people have asked for, so we're going to try to do that. And then, yeah, you can tweet us with hashtag What's the Pick. Hashtag What's the Pick is our Twitter outreach program. If you read it, if you read it, then we'll read it. But if you tweet it, we'll read it too. I don't think there are any this week.
No, I don't think so.
It says, sorry, I'm upstairs, so I am trying to use my phone rather than the internet on the computer. Do you see any, Danny?
No, so I don't have Twitter on me.
Did I lose you?
On this computer. No, I'm here. I can look on my phone real quick, but I don't see it. I think we lost Spencer.
All right, everyone. Well, we lost Spencer for this episode, so you can tweet at that for the pick, and we're going to end the episode. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see y'all next time.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.